Welcome to part 2 of the most dangerous sport alive. A car so unstable at speed, Porsche's own drivers named it the Widowmaker. An engine with no pistons screaming loud enough that marshals needed to warn people of permanent ear damage. A diesel at Le Mans that went quiet and then went unbeaten for 8 years. And a hybrid so fast, Porsche tore up its own rulebook just to find out what it would really do without restraint. And that's all before we even get to a month ago, because this year didn't go the way anyone expected. 4 cars, 4 eras, one circuit that humbled every single one of them. Let's get stuck in. Here's a car so dangerous that Porsche's own factory drivers refused to race it. And the reason why is purely aerodynamics. The 970's chassis was a work of art, a magnesium space frame weighing just 42 kilograms in the 70s, permanently pressurized with nitrogen gas so that even a hairline crack in a weld would show up instantly as a pressure drop on the dash. This genius technique though was hampered by everything around it. Anything over 180 miles an hour caused the long, elegant tail of the early 917 to not just decrease its downforce, but outright do the inverse, produce lift. Air was separating cleanly off the bodywork instead of staying attached for longer, which meant the faster the car went, the less contact it actually maintained on the road. This proved fatal, as on the opening lap of the 1969 race, Privateer John Wolfe crashed and was killed. Engineer John Horseman found the fault through a fluke. Taping strips of wool to the bodywork after a test session caused him to notice that they've been torn exclusively at the tail. Proof that the airflow there was stupidly turbulent, not smooth. That one piece of detective work led to a completely reshaped, shortened tail, the Cushheck, that finally kept the back end planted on the Mulsanne straight. A privately entered short-tail 917, funded by Ferdinand Porsche's own daughter, wins outright, driven by Hans Hermann and Richard Atwood, running the 4.5 litre version of the air-cooled Flat 12, putting out roughly 580 horsepower. Hermann had promised his wife that this would be his last race if he won it. He did so and retired the next day. Porsche later took the same Flat 12 architecture, bolted on twin superchargers, stretched it to 5.4 litres and built the 917-30 for Can-Am racing in America. Over 1,100 horsepower in race trim, reportedly well past 1,500 with boost tuned up for qualifying, and 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. It was so dominant that Can-Am rewrote its own rules specifically to kill it off. 19 overall Le Mans wins for Porsche since, more than any other manufacturer, and it all traces back to a piece of wool tape that didn't survive a single test lap. That screaming beast, ladies and gentlemen, is the Mazda 787B, which housed an engine like no other, which car enthusiasts have fallen in love with, the rotary engine. Here, instead of pistons moving up and down, a triangular rotor spins eccentrically inside an oval housing. Fewer moving parts, far less vibration, and a much bigger red line than any piston engine of the era could reach without becoming a shrapnel bomb. The R26B engine inside it used 4 of these rotors, each fitted with 3 spark plugs instead of the usual 1 or 2 firing early and 1 firing late, because at the rotary's absurdly high rev range, a single spark simply can't burn the fuel-air mixture completely before the rotors already moved past it. That's also where the scream comes from. It revved to 9,000 RPM, and witnesses at the time described the sound less as an engine note and more as an actual shriek, carrying across the circuit before the car was even visible. The previous year's 787 had been fast, but absurdly fragile, chronic low-end torque problems, causing little acceleration out of slow corners and apex seal wear where the rotor tips degrade under the engine's own heat, making it barely finish races, if at all. For 1991, to alleviate this, Mazda fitted ceramic seals and a continuously variable intake system that could lengthen or shorten the intake time on the fly, long for low rev torque and short for top-end power, instead of the old system which had only two fixed settings. That single change is what gave the 787B a usable power band for the whole 24 hours of racing, instead of just one screaming qualifying lap. The result? Around 700 horsepower in race trim and nearly 900 in qualifying, in a car weighing just 830 kilograms. And here is the twist. Mazda already knew going into the race that rotary engines were about to be banned from Le Mans the following year, making this a last-ditch effort to prove to the world that the rotary engine can win it all. And they did just that. The first Japanese manufacturer to ever win Le Mans outright. First and only rotary-powered winner in the race's history, with the most exotic note ever put into this competition. From screaming to silent, the next car is the most perplexing yet. Audi's R10 TDI ran a 5.5 litre turbo diesel V12, the first Audi diesel ever built with an aluminium block, purely to keep the weight down. Rival teams laughed at the idea in pre-season testing, but not for long. A diesel's high compression ratio and long piston stroke were curated to generate enormous torque at low revs. The R10 produced somewhere around 1,100 Nm of torque, nearly double what petrol prototypes around it were making. More torque lower down means fewer gear changes, less strain on the gearbox over 24 hours, and critically better fuel efficiency per lap. Better fuel efficiency means longer stints between pit stops. Over a 24-hour race, every pit stop you don't have to make is time nobody else on the grid gets back. That's the whole story in one sentence. Audi didn't win Le Mans by being faster in a straight line. They won it by needing to stop less. It wins on debut at Sebring, then Le Mans, then again 3 years straight from 2006 to 2008. Tom Christensen, the most successful driver in Le Mans history, said the car was so quiet at speed that wind noise was louder than the engine itself. Mechanics described the exhaust pipes as still clean enough to wipe with a cloth after a full day of running. Audi kept developing this idea. The R15 dropped to a V10 for less weight and added a lithium-ion battery, though only for onboard electronics up to that stage. Then, in 2012, the R18 e-tron Quattro went further still, a flywheel spinning at up to 45,000 RPM, storing kinetic energy captured under braking, then discharging it in short bursts through electric motors on the front axle. The diesel engine still only drove the rear wheels, so for a few seconds out of every corner, the R18 was effectively four-wheel drive without ever adding a mechanical connection between the front and back axles. Between 2006 and 2014, Audi's diesels lost at Le Mans exactly once to another diesel-powered car. Every winner at this race for 8 straight years ran on the same fuel as the tractor. Porsche's back again with another maddening piece of engineering. The FIA had moved LMP1 away from simple displacement limits and towards an energy formula, capping how much fuel each car could burn per lap, rather than limiting the size of the engines. That singular change is why the 919 hybrid runs a tiny 2-litre turbo V4 petrol engine, and why it relies so heavily on its hybrid recovery system to make the difference, instead of just building a bigger engine like Audi and Toyota had before it. Most hybrid systems at the time captured energy under braking and nothing else. The 919 did that through a front axle motor, but it also ran a secondary recovery system off the turbocharger, harvesting energy that would otherwise just spin a wastegate and vanish as heat. To separate two recovery paths feeding the same battery, Porsche entered it in the 8 megajoule class, a regulation category that let them deploy the most electric power per lap in exchange for the smallest fuel allowance, betting that recovery technology, not raw fuel, was the future. Combined output around 1000 horsepower. The bet paid off. 3 wins running, 2015 to 2017, including the most brutal finish in the race's modern history in 2016, when the leading Toyota broke down with minutes to go and handed Porsche the win on the very last lap. We will come back to that heartbreak properly in a moment. Porsche retired the 919 at the end of 2017. Most manufacturers would put a car like that in a museum. Porsche did not do that. Instead, they built the 919 Evo, the same car with every regulation stripped away. No fuel flow limit, no aero restrictions, no weight floor, active aerodynamics, increased downforce by roughly 50% over the race legal version. Combined output rose to 1160 horsepower, 720 from the combustion engine and 440 from the front electric motor. Non-essential weights came off too. Air conditioning, headlights, even a windscreen wiper, dropping it to 849 kilograms. April 2018, Spa-Francorchamps. The 919 Evo laps faster than that year's Formula 1 pole position lap time. 2 months later, the Nürburgring Nordschleife, 20.8 kilometers, the most demanding lap in motorsport. The outright record had stood here since 1983, set by a driver who died testing at that same circuit 2 years later. The 919 Evo didn't just beat it beat it by 52 seconds on a lap that takes over 5 minutes to complete. That same aerodynamic lesson from the 917 50 years on. Except this time, instead of fighting for downforce, Porsche had so much of it, they had to remove the rulebook just to use it all. That record still stands today. Now for the heartbreak I promised you. Toyota's TS050 ran the same 8 megajoule energy formula as the Porsche 919, but split the electric power across both axles instead of just the front, briefly running as genuine 4-wheel drive whenever the battery had charge to deploy. On raw numbers, it was every bit Porsche's equal. 3 minutes from the finish, 1 lap to go. Kazuki Nakajima driving the closing stint, about to give Toyota its first Le Mans win in 31 years of trying. The connector fails between the turbocharger and the intercooler. Power drops on the start-finish straight, in front of thousands of fans watching it happen live. The car limps home too slowly to even be classified. Porsche's 919 sails past to take the win instead. Toyota's own team described it afterwards as a lap that simply never seemed to end. They didn't fold. 2018, Toyota finally wins Le Mans outright, then 2019, then 2020, 2021, 2022. 5 wins in a row, as the last big European manufacturers stepped back from top class prototype racing. Then the rules changed again. 2021 brought the hypercar era, deliberately designed to cut costs after LMP1's arm race had priced most manufacturers out entirely. The tool that makes it work is balance of performance. The organisers actively adjust each car's weight, power and fuel allowance based on real performance data, so raw engineering budget alone can no longer guarantee a win. Toyota's GR010 runs a 3.5 litre twin-turbo V6, making around 680 horsepower, plus a single front axle hybrid motor, adding up to 272 horsepower, though that motor is only permitted to a gauge above around 125 miles an hour, a safety rule that stops the front wheels suddenly gaining power at low speed. Every manufacturer's total system output gets capped by BOP at roughly the same number, regardless of what's under the bodywork. From the worst 3 minutes in the team's history to 5 consecutive victories, and then straight into an era engineered specifically to stop anyone dominating that hard again. Which brings us to a month ago and proof that BOP actually works. Ferrari had won the race 3 years running, 2023 to 2025, building the closest thing to a dynasty in this new hypercar era. Going in, they were the favourites again, but they didn't win. Toyota's number 7 car started 14th on the grid, well outside the frontrunners, and fought back the entire field over 24 hours to cross the line just 10.9 seconds ahead of the BMW, their sister Toyota completing a 1-2-3 finish for the team. Ferrari's streak ends at 10 seconds after more than 5,000 kilometers of racing. That's how tightly modern regulations have pulled the field together. There was a new name on the grid too. Genesis, Hyundai's luxury division, made its first Le Mans appearance ever, the first Korean manufacturer to enter the top class. Not a fairy tale debut, however. Suspension failure on one car, reliability trouble limiting the other to the back of the order, which is more or less the expected growing pains of a brand new hypercar program first outing. Simply finishing that race on your first attempt is its own achievement. Toyota's win puts them level with Bentley with 6 overall victories apiece. 100 years after Wolf Barnato bought a struggling British company on a whim, Le Mans still finds new ways to rewrite its own history books. A car so unstable it had to be redesigned mid-career. An engine with no pistons banned the moment it finally won. A diesel that proved efficiency beat raw speed over 24 hours. A hybrid so complete Porsche had to remove the rules just to hit its ceiling. And a team that turned 3 catastrophic minutes into a 5-year winning streak. Every single one of these cars broke the sport in a completely different way. That's not 40 years of coincidence. That's just what this race does to anyone who thinks they've solved it. This has been Diary of a Petrolhead. Le Mans in 2 parts. Thanks for sticking with both of them. Goodbye.